using Mongose and also using the command line. So if you have any question, maybe you can just go ahead and let me know on the chat. Just you can identify yourself on the chat. I can unmute you so I can hear your questions before we proceed.
Hello.
I believe you can see my screen. Okay. All right. So I just dropped the website, mongosejs.com. We learned about Mongo in the other class. This class, we are just going to cover, building something using MongoDB, but we're going to use what we call Mongose, which is it's what we call an ODM, right? It's an ODM. So you can see it right here. So it's an ODM for MongoDB. For MongoDB object modeling, right? So an ODM stands for object. I think it's What is ODM? I think it's object document modeling. If I'm correct. In NoSQL, I think is object document mapper. Okay, yeah. So it stands for object document mapper. So once you open this website, just go ahead and click on Docs, and we're going to try out a couple of examples from the documentation, right? So you can follow through if you open the documentation on your end. Make sure you're using your laptop so you can run some examples on your end as well. I'm going to be fast. Yeah, I'm going to be fast. If you have any questions, just drop your questions, ask your questions while the class is in session. All right. So let's go ahead and create a new project. I'm going to create a project with the command Mongose projects. So going into the Mongose project, I'm going to create a file, main.js, or just index.js, and I'm going to initialize npm. Okay, so let's go ahead and open up VS Code, Visual Studio Code. Okay, so one of the first things I'm going to do is to install Mongose, right? So to install Mongose, I'm just going to run a simple command, npm install Mongose. So sometimes you might end up having like permission errors. What I do basically is I use a tool called nvm to manage my node versions. So just in case you want, I don't see any reason why you should do that for now, but just in case you get to a point where you might have to probably work on a project that was implemented a few years ago, and some libraries are not working well with the new Node.js version. You can use nvm to manage older versions as well. So this is it. Mongose is installed. Let's go back here, and what we're going to do is just test to see if Mongose is properly installed. So I'm going to do const Mongose, and I hope you can hear me. I have to verify that you can hear me. Okay. Mongose equals acquire Mongose. All right. Why am I making such mistakes? Okay. So the next thing is to connect to our MongoDB instance, right? But I'm just going to do this. Yeah, so I like using this to always let's see, require. Okay, so there was a spelling mistake there. All right, so I like using this to look at the objects within that particular package or library. Okay, so this is installed. Let's go ahead and connect using this line of code. I mean, this is just straight on the home page, right? So MongoDB localhost 27017. And what's do I have any existing? Let's see, Mongose. So I'm just going to check if I have any existing DB, probably the one we created from the last class. So I'm going to do show DBs, and we have online shop. Okay, so let's go ahead and use online shop. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do next is to say, yeah. So just to test what we have here, I'm going to say use online shop, and then I'm going to say show collections. So I see we have courses customers. Okay, so let's just do customers dot find. I think that would have been db.customers dot find. Yes, okay. So let's do the way you use Mongose, you actually use Mongose from creating a schema, then probably creating a model. We're going to go through documentation, right? Just open it on your laptop, but I'm trying to make you understand that the reason for Mongose is not that MongoDB cannot work on its own. MongoDB library, can work on its own very efficiently as well. But when using Mongose, it makes it a whole lot easier for you to play around with data and play around with queries, because it's abstracted in a way that makes it look natural to you as a JavaScript developer. So it looks more object oriented, and it's quite easier to navigate around the interface of the library. So let me what I'm going to do is I am going to move straight into the documentation. Before I do that, let's just quickly, complete. Let's just quickly test with what we have on the homepage here. So this is what you create, which is basically the model, right? But this is just an easier form of creating a model. I will show you something else shortly. So we have a new model here called cat. Name string. And I will tell you why we're doing this, right? I'm going to also tell you why we're doing this. So kitty equals new cat. I think I can just copy this, can't I? Yeah, I can, of course. Okay. So create it. Oh, yeah, I think I can actually run this straight from the yeah, okay. Okay, so let's see what happens. So we're able to create insert this item. We're going to do show collections. You see we have the new item here called cats, based on what we saved, right? So we just created a new model, called cats, and we are able to insert this item into cats. So what we're going to do right now is just try to understand every single bit, right? Probably not every single bit, but like a lot of the methods that you can use or that you can enjoy using from Mongoose, instead of using the traditional MongoDB library. Okay, so just click on read the docs. So I'm going to be following through from here. What I just did was click on read the docs, and I'm currently inside the documentation. Okay, and I'll be following that on a separate screen to avoid distractions. So the first thing I'm going to be showing you is how to define your schema, because the schema is kind of like the base of working with Mongoose, and the schema helps you have a proper structure of what your data should look like. So from the documentation, I'm just going to take off a couple of things here. Yeah, down to this point. So from the documentation, I'm going to first import schema from Mongose. So I'm going to say const schema, which is schema. So we're importing a schema. Oh, okay. So basically, what we're doing here, this is not an import. Sorry, what we're doing here basically is we are actually grabbing schema from Mongose, which means it's possible for us to also do this. We can do schema, right? Mongose. So this is also valid, right? What you have here is similar to what you have, with these two lines. So this is similar to this, right? Okay, so let's just take this off. Okay, so now we've gotten the schema from Mongose. We are going to now declare our schema, and we're going to declare a block schema here. Okay, so rather than creating these items without making it without creating a file or creating a proper schema, what we do initially with Mongo is just say db dot maybe users, right, dot insert one. So this is what we usually do, and then we'll put in the data in here, username, John. This is John. Probably, password. We can say ABCD. Okay, so this is what we usually do, but now we don't need to go through this pattern, because you find out that you keep creating stuffs like this, and you can easily make mistakes, right? So using Mongose, you can just create the entire schema from here. I'm just going to copy what we have on the documentation, and I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, so this is an example of what your schema would look like, right? An example. Of course, you can also include the ID. But when you include ID, you should be rest assured that you have to create your own unique ID. So it's possible to have, the thing is, Mongo actually creates an ID for you automatically. So I don't see any reason why you should do this. But if you have a specific use case, then definitely you can create your own unique ID using like this library. So let's go ahead and try a quick example here. So you always define your type alongside the field. So this is a field, right? So we have the title, string, author, string. For the comments, you have you see the comment has to be an array of objects, and this array is going to include the body and the date, right? The body happens to be a string, and the date happens to be date. So this is quite simple. So right here you have the date for the blog post. So this date actually describes the date for the comment, and this date describes the date of the blog post itself. Then you have a hidden value, which is going to be a true or false. It's a Boolean value, and based on this true or false value, you can easily configure the post, right? You can make it hidden or make it visible. Then you also have some sort of meta descriptions like the votes, and the amounts of people that have marked this as their favorite blog, right? So this is quite simple. Okay, so let's also and this can also be written this way. I guess. Let's see. So you can have type, string, and then you can have required. I think required true. Let's see if that is correct. Hold on. Mongose schema. Okay, so just trying to verify if yes. Okay, so I think that is correct. So type and also required true. So it can be required or not required. So this is a shorthand of doing something like this. So in case you see something like this, title, then maybe you see author having the same type, string, and then required false. So this is similar. The difference here is we want to add more attributes, right? As a matter of fact, you can definitely add the default value. So imagine I was referring to the ID. I said I want us to have our own custom type of ID. We can have type. I don't know if they have the UUID type here, so I'm going to just say string, and I think that's not properly spelled. Then we have the defaults, and default can be UUID dot v4, right? Even though we don't have that included now, we can have required true. I hope this is okay. So we should have a comma here, and all you have to do is reports require UID. Even though I don't have this installed, you just have to do let's see. I think we can probably do this from here by just calling npm I UID. Okay, so I'm just making you understand that you can have this, or you can have a shorter version. If your type is going to be more complex, then you probably have to do this. Okay, so for now I'm just going to probably put this in a different schema so that we can also work with it later. Have this in a different schema. So I'm just going to call that test schema. Okay, we're not using this for now, so probably I should move it to a different test schema.js. So I'm just moving this away from this file, so we won't have a cluttered file. Okay, so this is just simply what we have, the block schema. The next thing we should be looking at here is using some simple functions or methods, right? Let's say some methods that can so just use some methods. Before we do that, I think maybe I should also looking at the documentation, we have a bunch of schema types that are allowed. And this is something you need to know as well. So these are some of the data types that are allowed: string, number, date, buffer, boolean, mixed object ID, array, decimal, and map. So try to go through the documentation, the specific page that I am currently looking at, the schema page. Go through this page and click on every single type to know what they mean if you don't. But of course, it's also quite explanatory. It's quite simple to understand. The string refers to a string, number refers to numbers or integers, and of course, numbers also covers floating points, right? We have array, we have object ID, we have the mixed type, we have boolean, which is true or false. So just try to go through those types. And so now that we've created a schema, the next thing should be to create a model, right? So you use the schema more like the structure to set a base, and the next thing you have to do is to create a model. So now we have a model called blog, and the blog model then uses the blog schema, right? So this is all you need from the schema, just to define what the structure should look like, nothing more. And next you have the blog model. So now we are saying the Mongose.model, and we pass in the name of the model. This is the name we want the model to be called, right? The blog model, and it should carry this structure, which is the blog schema. So quite simple. The next thing we should be looking at right now is probably perform a bunch of CRUD operations, like create our data, update the data, delete the data, and all that. We're going to test that right now. We're going to test that right now. If we have enough time, we can even build up a very simple Express JS API to work with that. Okay, so let's us start by working on something very simple, which is just to create or to save this data. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to say var, or probably just So let's do students equals new Okay, yeah, so that's a mistake. Let's use something. So let's say post one, right? Equals new blog post. I think maybe I should call it like a blog post. Okay, so we can just say this is equals, so equals new blog post. I think we can just wrap this item this way. So we need to pass in this bunch of items, yeah? So title, yes, I think that is correct. Okay, so title, we need to pass in our value just like this. So I think I can just go ahead and pick this, item. Of course, you don't have to pass in every single item. Yeah, but let's go ahead and say title, how to use Mongose ODM bundle. Okay. Okay, let's just take this. Okay. So here you have the comment. The comment is going to carry. So you can say this is our first comment. And the dates. So this has to be a new date. What I'm going to do instead is okay. So hold on. What I'm going to do is to create a new date straight from my terminal. I think I should do that here. So I'm just going to say console. Okay, I need to first go into Node. And I'm just going to say console.log dates now. Okay, so this is the kind of date you get when you just use console.logdate.now. But of course, there are multiple ways to convert this into kind of like UTC dates and all that. Yeah, so do I need to do that? I don't think it's compulsory. So if we have this date go in, I strongly believe Mongo will be able to work with this. So let's just pick this item and paste it in here. I think this should be let's see. So type dates, and this is also giving us date.now. Also, since we can work with the default, I think it makes sense. Let's just do date.now then. Hidden, so we can just say true, or maybe false. The vote, so we can put 5. So remember, this should be coming from your API or something. So the next thing we should do here is just say post one dot save. All right. So let's verify that. Yeah. Okay, that's correct. Okay. So yes. So this is what you have to do. This is a function dot save. Most times you might want to put this in some sort of asynchronous function because you want to call this. You want to probably call this asynchronously with the dot await. But before we do that, let's just go ahead and run this. Exit. What? Exit. Okay. Let's see. So let's see. Okay, so we get a blog validation failed. So let's see what the error. Let's see what caused the error exactly. So I'm going back to the top. New validation error. Okay, blog validation failed. Comment. Okay, so I think the problem actually came from this date. So what if we take this away? Run this again. So we still get the same error, and I'm trying to figure out how to take out the dates. Let's see. Okay, so I took out the date completely since we have that being generated inside the schema, right, by default. So there's a default value, so I just took it out, of the body here. So let's come in here and let's see show collections. So now we have blogs, and once I say db.blogs, find, it gives us all the blogs. So now we have our data saved in here automatically. we're able to view it from here based on what we created here. And as you can see, it has its own object ID generated automatically. So what if we decide to add our own ID in here? Let's go ahead and see if that would change what our schema would end up looking like. So if we do ID uid.v4 into comma, so that is generated automatically. So maybe what we can do here is something like this type. Yeah, okay, so I want to be sure. I don't think this can be added here as part of the schema, right? But we're going to first test. Okay, so of course it cannot. What you're expecting is type. So let's go ahead and just put string, and then what we can now do in here is to pass the ID before. So let's go ahead and run this. So if we go and show the items, we're able to see that we now have a new ID, right? So we have our own custom ID. So it depends. It depends on what you're trying to achieve, what you're trying to build. It's up to you if you want to use a custom ID or you want to stick to the MongoDB default ID type. I think that's up to you. Okay, so yeah, so we're able to create a schema. We're able to then create our model. Then we're able to save the data in here. I think what we should do is try to create a better structure for this, right? So the best way to do this is to probably have a schema file. So let's take this off for now. So let's come back here, move our schema in here. Then we are able to say exports. So is this correct? Yes, exports to block schema. So we're saying equals new schema, meaning we have to say const schema require Mongose. Is this correct? So let's see. Since we're exporting block schema now, then we can bring in the block schema by doing require schema. Okay. So let's verify block schema. Okay, all right. So this is working. So next, we create the model. So create the model, right? And finally, we create a function. So let's create a function. Let's do const create. Yeah, so we can just call this create, right? We can call this create, and we can say equals async. Okay, I think this should work. So we select posts. Let's just call this post, or let's just go ahead and do it this way. I don't know if we can call the .save directly in here. I like to shorten this code base. Then we probably need to call the create function. Awaits. So because I'm appending this save here, so I just want to be sure if this can work. So let's just say this is the fourth blog post. So let's stop running and run this again. Come back here and let's see. So this is the fourth blog post. All right, so this is working. So now we have I think we should have like about 3 different posts. Okay, so this is working, and we'll be able to create a better structure for this. So we have the create function here, simply doing the job of creating the data and also saving the data. If this is looking too verbose, then maybe you can have you can do let post equals, and then you have await post dot save, right? So this is save the posts. All right, so you can do something like this, and this is also not a bad design, right, for our code. Okay, so now we're able to save this item. Looking at documentation, there are other things you might need to know. Let's talk about the instance methods. So basically, from documentation, the instance, documents have a bunch of built-in methods, of course, but you can also decide to define your own methods. And this is quite interesting because this is an example of something you can do if you want to define your own. So imagine we have something like this. We have a very simple schema here, right? So this is a very simple schema called the animal schema. And the next thing I have here, we're able to extend the functionality of this schema by saying animal schema.methods.find similar. So we're able to create a new a schema called find similar types, right? And then we have a callback. And what we did here is we just returned, using this Mongose model. We launched the model here, and we are saying .find the type, right? So what we're going to do here is if we decide to write a very simple, so I'm going to show you what you can do. This is what you can do. So now we are able to create a new model. Remember that this is the schema, right? This is the schema. We defined our schema here. Now we're able to create a new model. So this is our model. So this is different from what we tried earlier, right? We're just trying to understand this. We're able to extend the functionality of this schema that we initially implemented here by adding a custom method, right, to the base methods. So these are custom methods, find similar types. And we're able to say, okay, now we have a model. How do we utilize the find similar types for this, our new model? It's as simple as just doing this. Now we're saying dog we first need to initialize the new dog. So we first need to say we have a new dog which happens to be an animal, right? And it has the type of dog. Then now we're saying dog.find similar type dogs. So what is actually happening here is this is utilizing this custom method from the schema to give us our results. So we're not going to run this. Running this is going to create our new. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's just run this. Okay, so I think I have to first. So let me see where this is. Okay. So I think we have something wrong here. Okay, yeah, the new schema. But unfortunately, I took off schema from here, so I have to say. Okay, so I'm seeing a question in the. Okay, sorry. Samuel is asking if there's a default ID value for the schema. Yes, there is one, but you can also define your own and decide to utilize your own. Okay, so what I was just trying to show you here is we don't have any dog stored in here at the moment, right? We don't have any dog stored in here. So, but if we decide to do store some items with different types, right? Then definitely we can filter, or we can try to filter the types from here, or find the similar types according to the custom method we've defined, right? So, but what I'm going to focus on right now, because of time, is a couple of CRUD operations, right? A couple of CRUD operations that we can use. to insert data. So we already did something for the creating of data, right? So we're going to do something along the line of updating. So we're going to do something along the line of updating. Give me a minute. So I'll be looking at the documentation, and please try to also have that documentation opened on your end. I need to figure out what is going on here. Oh, okay. Okay, I think I get it now. Yeah, so because of my the situation of electricity around here, I'm trying to minimize the amount of things I can share, so we can save a little bit of power. Okay, so this is what I have. I hope you can see my screen. I'm just sharing VS Code. I'll be looking at the documentation, so please try to look at the same documentation. What we're going to do is we're going to perform these CRUD operations, right? So the first thing I've shown you already is how to save an item. The second thing I'm going to do right now is how we can simply get an item or probably find one item, right? Then I will also show you how to find all items. It's quite simple. You just have to utilize the same model. So we already have this as our model, right? So if we are to find one item, let's say const find one equals sync. So all we have to say is let item equals the model, right? This is our model, and we just say dot find one. But now we need to pass in the so you need to pass in the should I say the requirements, what you're expected to find this with, probably like the ID or something. What I'm going to do instead, looking at our terminal, let's split the terminal here so you can see what I'm doing as well. So Mongosh, drop this a little bit. So what I'm going to do instead from here is I'm going to first say show DBs so that we can connect to the. So I think this is my DB. Is that correct? What did we call? Okay, yeah, online shop. Okay, so use online shop. So show collections. I think that should be. Is it blogs? Yeah, blogs. Okay. So DB the blogs dot show dot find, right? Okay, so we're going to search for an item with the author of John Doe. But before we do that, let's first create. Let's call it John Mary. I think that's not a bad name. So let's just call create once again. Okay, so I believe we now have John Mary. So if I go ahead and do this again, I believe we have John Mary now. Okay, so we're going to look for an item with John Mary. So let's say find one where author is equivalent to John Mary. So let's see. I think we can probably await this. Yes, I think we can. Let's just do console.log item. Okay, so let's go ahead and test this now. Find one. Let's see if we made any mistake there. Okay, so there's no mistakes, and we're able to get the item John Mary, right? So you can definitely find with even the title. You can use the title. You can use the ID. This is currently using a custom ID, of course. But we can also take off this ID and take off the ID from here. Yeah, so now we can, let's cancel this. We can go ahead and create a new data again. Create. This time we are going to change. So we're going to call this. This is a new blog. Didn't keep track of. Okay. So John Mark. All right. So let's create a new blog item. Let's view here. So we have this item saved, right, to our database. And what we can do now is to find one. So trying to find one item with the author of John Mark, or let's go with the title, which of course you can. So you can go with the title and let's see what we get. So you see, we're able to get the data back here. All right. So of course, I will not advise you search with things like title, but you might want to do that. It's always good to search with things with unique keys if you're looking for just one item, because this will only give you the first single result. But of course, then we also have the find menu. So let's use that. Okay. So this is find one. Cost find menu. Okay, items equals await. So now we are trying to search for multiple items, and yes. So what we are going to do is quite simple as well. I mean, you have the blog, you have the model doing this for you, so it's quite straightforward as well. So you have find many. So you see, we have a lot of options or methods you can use. We have find by ID and delete. So you want to look for a specific item and perform delete automatically. Find by ID and remove. Find by ID and update. I mean, you need to explore everything here, because they are beautiful in specific use cases, right? So for now, we are just going to find many, and yes, we're going to find many. So this probably give us. So you can also pass in the filter, right? This is called the filter. So you can pass in the filter to give you items with probably the same body, right? We have so many blog posts here, so you can definitely use a filter. I'm just going to get every single item from here. Items. But of course, you can pass in the filter. I just want you to know that you can definitely pass in the filter. Okay, so let's cancel this. And let's try. So yeah, we have a problem, and this is not working. Find menu. Okay, so what's the problem? It said find menu is not a function. Okay, so let's see. I think it's got to be one. What is the problem exactly? Blog post of find menu is not a function. Okay, so let's see. Okay. Blog posts dot find menu is not a function. Oh, okay. So that is actually not a inbuilt method. So let's see. Find. So we have find by ID. Find one. Okay, so I'm going to verify this right now. Just want to verify if we have the find menu there. So let me quickly check the documentation, and yeah, let's see what they have in here. So we have find one, we have save, we have using the queries, we have update menu. Okay, so how come we don't have the find menu? Mongose find menu. Okay, so I think it's just find. Probably I'm making that mistake. It's just find. Let's see. Okay. All right. So it's simply just find, right? Not find many. So looking at the fact that we have find one, so it's just find. Yeah, sometimes it's always good to just make sure you're able to go through the documentation because this can be confusing at times. Having known that you have find many in the you have find, right? You have find in the base library, and we have like find one. So yeah, but it's simply find. Then I think you can also pass in a filter if you want to. You can pass in a filter to get you probably like the items with how to use Mongo ODM as the title. I'm very sure this works. Let's run the command again. So you see we're able to get three different items with the same title, right? Okay, so this is how you find one item. This is how you find many items with a filter or without a filter. You can take off the filter. So the next thing we should try to do now is to update. But before I show you how to update, I want us to also open the atlas, and I'm going to share my screen to show you the Mongo. I think it's the Mongo Compass. Yeah, sorry, not Atlas. Atlas is the cloud version of MongoDB, but I'm just going to show you um, out. I'm sure you must have downloaded Compass already because I said we should try to download this in the last class. Um, I'm just trying to preview the data there so you can also see for yourself. So let me change the window that I'm currently sharing, and I think I should be able to share the Compass. Okay. All right. So this is Compass, and of course, I'm currently on my local host, so I can see online shop, and I can see blogs. And right inside the blogs, I see different data that I created, and this is good because you can actually use different views. You can use the JSON view, which is also referred to as BSON, right? You can use a tabular view for those of you that are used to relational type of structure. So you can use this to preview your data. Then this is the base view. I really love using this view. I honestly love this view because I'm really a big fan of relational databases as well. So what you can do from here, you can do a couple of things. You can export the entire collection. Of course, you refresh if new items are added in here. You can search, right? We have other set of complex things you could do like aggregations. Of course, you can define or analyze the schema. But what I'm going to, yeah, this is your indexes. You can also add multiple indexes. You can you can add validation rules to your schemas or to the entire collection. Let's go down to this point and let's try to filter. So you can actually filter from here, right? You can filter, do your sorting and all that, and then you copy what you have here into your code base. So for example, we can filter with title. So you see it gives us suggestions, and we can filter with title or maybe authors. Let's go with author. It's quite simple to type, and we have John, Mary. So you see we're able to filter that item. So you're sure this works, right? Then you can pick this up and use it inside your code base. Yeah, but this is a very good tool to analyze or to preview your data on the collection. So just try to make sure you have this. We're not doing any complex thing here. We're not doing aggregation, but this is something that you get. If I should jump into aggregation, it might be confusing at this stage. But for now, I hope you are able to understand the usefulness of this tool. Of course, you can do all these things with your terminal. I love using the terminal to avoid distractions, but that's a personal reason. And I feel for most of you, I believe you might enjoy doing it this way rather than typing a bunch of commands. So I'm going to share VS Code once again, and we will continue to the next method. So let me do that. VS Code. Let us share VS Code. Okay. All right. So I believe you can see Visual Studio Code. Okay. So now that you can see Visual Studio Code, I think we have to move on to the next method, which is basically to updates, or deletes. We can just go ahead and do. Let's go with update first, right? Let's go with update. Okay, so what I'm going to use is the find by ID and updates. That's basically what I'm going to do. But first, I have to create a function to perform that. So I'm going to say const updates equals async. And of course, I'm using arrow functions, but it's not compulsory you use arrow functions. I just personally love using arrow functions. Okay. So next, I'm going to say not this. So next, I'm going to still work with this model, right? So this dot. So now I'm going to use find by ID and update. Yeah. So now that I'm using find, remember this is a method, right? So now that I'm using find by ID and update, of course, this can be results equals, right? So now that I'm using this, I'm going to pass in the ID, right? I'm going to pass in the ID, and after passing in the ID, I need to pass in the items that I want to update, right? So I need to pass in the ID first, and I think I can do it this way, ID. So I'm going to pick this specific ID. I think this should be the last item we have here. So let's verify. This is the last item. So let's pick the object ID, just like this. Okay. Okay, then I think the next thing we should do is let's change the author to now we have John Mark. Let's change to John Marv console.log result. So we need to see what might possibly go wrong here. I feel we might have a problem with the ID, but just to verify, I think we do. We do have a problem with the. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's go ahead and see what we have. So we still have John Mark. Okay, so something definitely went wrong. Verify again. Okay, so something definitely went wrong. But let's see. Let's see what we got. So I think we might have to persist this. Let's see if that works automatically. Okay. Okay, so we might have to, probably we might be making a mistake. I guess we might be making a mistake from the way we are passing in the data, right? I think we might be making a mistake because we're passing in this data as objects. Since we said find by ID and updates, yeah. So let's see. Okay. So what if we do the blog post dot find? Okay. Dot updates one. Okay. Okay, so I think this is okay. So when you're doing find by ID and update, I think we are actually supposed to convert the ID. The ID type we currently have saved in here is a Mongo object ID. So probably what we should do, let's try to update an item with something else. I'm going to try to update an item using the using this update one. So let's see, just the same way you would do it with Mongose. So let's see if we can change this to Marv. If this works. Okay, and let's see. This is not working. Update one. Okay, so I'm going to figure out why this is not working the way we expect it to work. But obviously, I'm sure we can get to see what the error is, right? I believe we can. So let's do some then and catch. So let's do the then data, and we'll say console.log data. Then let's do dot catch error, right? And we just do this. Okay, so we do console.log. I believe you understand what I'm doing here. So let's just try to see if we have an error. All right, so this is the error. Acknowledge true, modified field. Okay, so I think this was actually modified because we have one. Okay, so how come I'm still Oh wow, okay. So this was modified. Oh yeah, okay. So this was actually modified. I did not take note of this. Okay, so what if we change Marv now to Marv Johnson? Just oh yeah, we need to first run the code here, and then okay. So we're able to update a single item. Okay, so since we're able to update a single item, let's go ahead and try to make this work. So this is a blog post defined by ID and update. I'm going to try to find by this specific ID like this, and then we're going to update the author to Johnson Michael. Just to see if then we're also going to try to get to see if we have an error or not, right? So I think I can bring this to the bottom here. I will say then data right console data and dot couch error. Okay, just like this. Okay, so this is so let's see if we have all right. So we have an error. Object ID dot cast. Okay, so I think this is where the problem is actually coming from because working with the ID argument pass must be a string. Okay. Okay, so let's try to figure out how to make this work. So we have to probably do some conversion there. I think we can make this work. We can make this work. Okay. So the number one reason why this is not working is because of our schema. Remember, we are not we are not passing that specific type of ID in here, except we do this string. But of course, you have to make sure you're consistent with the type of ID you pass into your schema, right? We're not consistent here, which is actually wrong. So you have to make sure you're consistent when working with this. And of course, from my observations, let's go ahead and run this again. And yeah, we're able to change this. Yeah, Johnson Michael. So this is working. This is working basically because of what we had to change it here, right? So remember I said you have to be consistent. So in order to make something like this, with the object ID work, this is where we probably have to let's try this. So I'm changing this item from Marv Johnson to Marv Johnson, right? So just so that we can identify this. So if I run this, okay, from Marv Johnson. So let's Marv Johnson. Okay, good. So this is working. Okay, so this is working. We're able to use any of the options we have here. This is basically how to find a particular item and update. This is how to update a specific item that you already know the details to, right? So this is working. You're updating one item. Find ID and update. You can actually change the filter as well. Remember, you can change this filter to some other type of object. With the key. Make sure you put the key when you're using an object there. Okay, so this is we've done the update and finally delete. Right, it's already past 9. So let's just round up. This is delete. Can I spell delete? Yes, I can. Okay, what is wrong here? Something is wrong. Right, I think it's not allowed as a variable name. Oh, okay. Delete item. Okay, so that's a reserved word, keyword in JavaScript. Yeah, so I think delete is actually used to delete items from an object. So if you have an object, you can actually use. So if you have an object like this, just so you know, if you have an object with name, John, something like this, you can basically do delete, right? And then you can delete item name, right? So you can actually do this. This is valid JavaScript just to take off this item, right? So if you come down here and say console.log item, this is not what we're doing, but just a heads up. So you see, we're not getting anything inside item because we've deleted it using this line of code. So yeah, this works. Basically, you get the user object from a database. You want to delete the password because you don't want to show the password when you're sending it out. You can use delete, right? I use it a lot when I build Node.js APIs. So yeah, so just a quick one there. So now we are going to say blog post dot delete one, right? So delete one, and we should be able to delete an item with. So we're going to delete an item. This author with map Johnson. We're going to delete that item. So basically, I'm going to delete the item with the object ID, and I put comma. I think this is all I need to do. I believe. Yeah, this is basically all I need to do. Await this if you want to, not compulsory, but since we are currently using our async functions, we can await these items so that this operation would complete before moving on to the next operation if you have one when writing your code. So we're able to delete this item, and let's see if it works. Okay, so we have an error, and it says delete one object error. Okay, so filter. It must be an object. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So where is this coming from? Okay. So yeah, I think we probably have to specify. I think so. Let's see if this is. Yeah. Okay. So that was expected. Okay. So we actually had to specify this way, but of course we can then do find one and delete as well, and this time we just have to also pass in the object ID. So I'm trying to search for let's delete this. So I want to see if we can delete an item without the object, if it works. Let's comment this and let's try. Yes, we can. And this is working as well. Okay, so you see we're able to, when you use delete one, you have to pass in the ID. When you use find one and delete, you don't need to pass in the ID because it knows you're probably trying to find the ID already. So this works, and the second option works as well. Quite simple. After deleting, you might want to pass some messages, so you can do .then. You can do .then. If there's any data, which I doubt, there might be data. Sorry, what am I doing? Okay, so we have console.log. Blog item was deleted successfully. Okay, it was an error. Okay, console.log could not delete blog item. Okay, so could not delete blog item with ID, so you can pass this as an ID. This can be an ID, and you call this function passing the ID in here. So it's quite impressive when you begin to do things like this, because then you're building up a very solid function, right? You're building up a very solid function. You don't have to add this to your code. Of course, this is what your data should look. This is what a function should look like at the end of the day. But for now, everything is just static. So probably what we'll do next is to build up an API, a real API for maybe a blog or any other application, and try to utilize every single method we've learned. But there are still some other things you have to learn to do very well, especially when it comes to filtering, Mongodb filtering. So I would say learn Mongodb filtering. So when you do things like greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, try your best to check out these items. You can check out these items on Mongodb core documentation, or also on you can check out these items on Mongose. I believe they have a section where they really state those filter options, right? I strongly believe so. So check out the documentation, read through documentation, from the schemas to schema types to the connections, the models, the documents, subdocuments, queries. I think that's what you need to focus on, right? Check out the queries. You have to really focus on that a lot. We have query casting. We have validation. Validation is on your schema level, where you can set what is required or what is not required. So if there's an error with data coming in, the Mongose schema is able to tell you that this is wrong, there's an error there. Try to fix that. Check out the middleware. Check out discriminators. I think that is on the schema level. Yes, then the transactions as well, and also the timestamps. These are just stuff you need to read through and try to understand. If you have any question, come down to the Discord channel and drop a question. Or in our next class, you can ask me as many questions as you want to ask, and I'll do my best to answer you accordingly. So thank you very much for being part of this session, and I hope you were able to take one or two things out of this session. I'm going to zip this up and share with you. First off, I need to take up the node modules. Okay. Also take up the package.log. I think that should be it. Okay, so Mongose projects. I have to compress. Share this with you. Okay. All right. So that is all for now. Thank you very much and have a wonderful night.